Hi, Blazers. I want to talk today about the light-dependent reactions of photosynthesis, and then tomorrow I'll talk about the light-independent reactions in photosynthesis. So let's take a look. Just a little review from Tuesday. We looked at photosynthesis as a process used by autotrophs, not just limited, of course, to green plants, but other photosynthetic bacteria and other organisms that undergo photosynthesis. So we look at it in our two phases. We're going to look at today the light dependent phase, and tomorrow the light independent phase, or what we sometimes call the dark phase. So we'll run through that, those two pieces. Kind of one of the important things is where they take place. You're going to see today that these light reactions all take place in the membrane of the thylakoid, and the independent reactions, or the dark reactions, take place in the liquid portion of the chloroplast, which we call the stroma, stroma. And they run through a cycle which was first discovered by the man by the name of Calvin. So we call it the Calvin cycle. So let's start by looking again at the light-dependent reactions. Now, as I mentioned, these are going to take place in the thylakoids. Remember, the thylakoids are these little coin-like, flat coin-like pieces where we're going to find our green pigment chlorophyll, and we're also going to have these reactions that take place. Remember, the stack is the granum, and that's where these reactions, the light reactions anyway, are going to take place inside of each of those. So again, as review, right, light comes in, remember, following all arrows, into the thylakoid, and this is going to be, embedded in the membrane portion. And in photosynthesis, we're going to end up doing a couple different things. So we'll take a look at everything that's going to happen inside there. So another piece that we look at when we're looking at how the chloroplast is put together, because this becomes important. And the chloroplast is, like any other organelle, is adapted to suit its function. So we know that the volume inside of each one of these little discs or thylakoids is relatively small. So we have to have photons of light that come in, and they have to be absorbed in this inside the thylakoid. Again, where we're going to find our green pigment. And then they will make ATP by taking ADP and adding a phosphate to it, so that we get this process which we call photophosphorylation. Much more efficient way of synthesizing or making ATP. It's a little bit more of a detailed look here inside. Here's our thylakoids, these coins in stacks called granum. We see that they're green because of the green chlorophyll, green pigment called chlorophyll. The light from outside, the photons will come in, and these reactions are going to take place. The light-dependent reactions are going to take place inside the membrane of the thylakoid. Again, sunlight comes in, water comes in. We have our light reactions that are going to produce oxygen, because we split water here. And then we make energy, and then we're going to go out with with the making of the NADPH into the Calvin cycle, which is part of the light independent reaction. So take a look at all of this and how it happens. So today we're talking specifically about the light dependent reactions. And we're going to see that there really are 5 parts or stages to the light dependent reactions. We've got photosystem 1, photosystem 2, the electron transport chain, the making of ATP, and then the reduction of NADP. So those 5 things are going to all come into play here. Now you'll notice here's the membrane of the thylakoid, and we see that embedded here we have photosystem 2, which is where we start, and photosystem 1, where we gain some more energy from the photons, whatever our light source happens to be, and we then carry on. And then here's our electron transport chain. Again, the light reactions are all taking place in the thylakoid. The light independent, or what is sometimes called the dark reactions, are taking place out here in the liquid portion of the chloroplast called the stroma. So chlorophyll we know is a green pigment, and we group our chlorophyll into 2 sections of our membrane here. The first is what we call photosystem 1, and the other is photosystem 2. Now we're always going to start over here with photosystem 2. I know it's kind of sounds backwards, but that's where we're going to start. We're going to move along the membrane this way. So at the beginning of any light-dependent reaction, we have to have some sort of photon or light source that is going to interact with the chlorophyll inside of the thylakoid. So the chlorophyll is going to be absorbed in this first photosystem, which is actually photosystem 2. And then we're going to pass that energy from here to here. And that's in the center, what we call the center reaction area of our photosystem 2. And then it continues to move, and the pigment, the green pigment here, chlorophyll, will be able to donate some of the excited electrons, and they're going to become excited in this reaction. Now you notice down here, here's our water coming in, and in photosystem 2, one of the things we have to do is split water into its hydrogen component, its oxygen component, and the electron piece. So this is where the electrons get excited, and they're able to keep moving here, and they move along what's called the ETC, or the electron transport chain. That's what you see right here in this square here. And then those electrons keep moving. They're going to move into photosystem 1, which is over here. So we've gone, here's our electron transport chain, and it moves those electrons into photosystem 1. Now, because this is a photosystem, you'll notice we have to have another light source still coming in. And it's going to continue to move, and this is where we get another process that is going to take our NADP plus and break it down into NADPH. So here's our phosphorylation here. Remember I said we take ADP, we add a phosphate group. You can't see it down here. We add a phosphate group to it, and with that we can produce, let's see if I can go back. We can produce our ATP right here, ADP, adenosine diphosphate, plus phosphorus gives us our ATP, which is our energy source. Again, we're looking at what's happening over here in the thylakoids. Photosystem 2 is happening. And over here in the stroma, the liquid, the dark reactions are taking place over here. So just a summary, this is basically what we just went over. Again, if we start with a light source coming in and our photosystem 2 is what we begin with. The molecules will come in, the light interacts with the green pigment chlorophyll. That photon then causes keeps moving until it reaches the chlorophyll, moves to the reaction center. From there, it's going to keep moving to, we have the excited electrons because of the split of our water molecule into hydrogen, oxygen, and our electrons. And they keep moving here. After photolysis occurs, and we move into the electron transport chain. And again, we have these are our embedded proteins here, and the electrons move from embedded protein to embedded protein until they reach our second photosystem, which is actually photosystem 1. Again, we need more light to come in. Same thing happens into the thylakoids. We get the reaction with the chlorophyll. The energy from those electrons keeps moving. It causes, it actually is the energy for the movement of these hydrogens down here in and across the membrane. And this, of course, causes the concentration gradient, right? Because we're going to have the movement of our hydrogens from outside to inside of the membrane. Once the electrons get over here to photosystem 1, that photon of light re-energizes them, and they're then used, these excited electrons are used in the reduction of NADP plus here. And it gains one of those hydrogens, and it will produce for us NADPH, which is the last, almost the last part. So if we look at in the light independent area over here, what are we producing? We are producing NADPH and ATP. So that's kind of a light dependent reaction. So make sure you go over that, and if you have any questions, just let me know.